Welcome back. Welcome back to A Stronger Foundation Information Lab with Dr. Small, an academic architect, PDO, planner, designer, and overseer of the academic success plan for kids. All right, let's remember Dr. Small is the executive director of A Stronger Foundation. And at A Stronger Foundation, we offer certain services, including success skill development. So if you have a middle schooler that you want to start having that conversation with, what does success look like? Remember, it's not luck. It's not by chance. We don't just walk blindly and succeed in life. And we remember our definition of success. Okay. Awesome. So we have the success skill development. We have the educational enrichment training. Enrichment in education means that you know your stuff. You know the stuff you're supposed to know. Doesn't mean that you need to, learn like you're going to be the professor or the teacher of that information. But a rich education at the appropriate level is what we're talking about when we say educational enrichment training. Enough quality education that aligns you with your purpose is necessary. So next is the academic evaluation and consultation. So we have that service where come to us and we're going to help to educate. We're going to help to evaluate your child and show you where you are. You won't believe how many parents I walk up to and they become almost defensive, so I'm very careful because I know what we're working with here because they get into defense mode and I don't want them to fight me. Okay. I do a little bit of boxing here and there, but when you mess with the amygdala and they think that, they're in survival mode, that's fight or flight. You're going to get beat up. Okay. If you're coming from a different mind space and you're messing with someone that's coming from the amygdala fight mind space, you're messing with their limbic system, that emotional control center, you better run. Don't freeze. You better run. So, then we have the evaluation. Yeah. So like I was saying, when I talk to the parents, they quickly will say to me, oh, my child is fine. They're doing well in school. Everything's perfect. There's nothing wrong. My child doesn't need tutoring. Oh my goodness. They get so defensive at it. And then I say, all you have to do, just prove me wrong. You show me that this data doesn't represent your child. Show me that your child is not in this. And you can show it to me by doing an evaluation. Okay. If you want it for free, I guess that's what we'll have to do. Right. But we have to show you that your child is here. And my role and my purpose in life is to align children with their life purpose. And so that means I have to approach these parents that are allowing their children to fail. It's an ethical implication to allow someone to go through their whole life when they had the opportunity to prepare to escape the disparities in life, and you just allow them to do it. And then we have the nerve to say, oh, I love my child more than life itself. And I am going to say this right now. I do want to say, see, sometime when a child is ill, let's say they have a terminal illness, the parents don't sit here and say, oh, how much is it going to cost me to save their life? Would you allow the child just to die because they told you that weekly you have to pay $500? Even our program doesn't dare go that high. We're so low. We're ridiculously how much A Stronger Foundation charges for hourly session. Ridiculous. And parents still run away. But my point for saying 500 is, what if they told you that the treatment for your child is $500 a week, $1,000 a week, so that you can save their life and cure their cancer? What would you say? Would you say, oh, that's too much money. I don't have my finances together. Oh, my finances is not in place. When I get the money, I'm going to do it. If I had the money, this wouldn't be a question, but I don't have the money to help my child to escape the disparity, economic disparity, the failures that aligns with their current achievement in school. So I'm just going to let them grow up, even though I know this is their window of opportunity. And I do know if you're going to train a child and develop the right habits for success, I know it's supposed to happen now, but I'm not going to do it because I don't have the money. So if it was a medical case, would you say that? No, it would be unethical. So parents like to say to me, well, how can you compare cancer to education? Oh, I love that question because here's what I say to you. Why would you save a child's life only to allow them to grow up to lose their life? What? Why would you save their life if they're ill? What are you saving their life? Because the purpose of the child is to align with their purpose. But you're not doing what you need to do to make sure they align with their purpose. What you're doing is going to cause them to align with depression and anxiety. Because if you don't develop them academically, they're going to end up in the worst version of themselves in life. They're going to be that lethargic person, that struggle. You know that. So why would you save their life only for them to become a dead man walking? Because a dead man walking is still dead. Or maybe you'll say, no, a dead man walking is alive. Okay, but my point, you doing everything to save them just so you can align them to struggle in life. What's the point? So I ask parents, look at what we're doing. Look at the education of your child as a life source. A life source. See it as mandatory. See it as urgent. I want you to smell smoke like there's a fire. I want you to hear sirens. That's what I want them to do. Instead of allowing their kid to fail, only to become adults that can't leave their house at age 24 years old. They can't go to college because they get turned off because they don't have the foundation. If you don't have the foundation, going to college is crazy. So why set them up to fail? That's what I ask them. If you would pay any amount of money to save your child's physical life, only to allow them to grow up, to be mentally dead, that's crazy. There's no worse death than being an adult who's lost, who's depressed, who has anxiety attacks. Oh my God. Being an adult who never align with your purpose. Being an adult that never fulfill your dreams. Being haunted by this tree, knowing that this same tree is life tree. Don't tell me that God gives certain cultures, certain skin tone, more fruits on their tree. How dare you say that about our Creator? He wouldn't do that. You have the same opportunities to build the roads you need to build so that you can access the fruits that's on top of your tree. And trust me, those fruits at the top of the tree, oh my God, they're there. You have them. The rich person have them. You have them. The successful person have them. You have them. Okay, if a person can access more, it's because they had more. They sacrifice more. We're gonna get to the sacrifice. And we talk about discipline versus lethargy. Because remember, if you're taking the easy road and you're all about comfort, because comfort don't align with success. If everything you do is to keep you comfortable, okay, remember homeostasis. If everything you do is controlled by the hypothalamus, every time you get a little challenge in life, well, I guess it's not so bad if it tries to regain balance. I mean, that's a good thing, you know. But sometimes it would maybe take time, you know, because the easiest way to regain balance is to stop what you're doing. So if you're studying, right? Remember our little guys together, the discipline and the lethargic versions. And if you start to pick up a book and you start to study, and you're starting to miss your show that you like to binge watch, that lethargic side is going to say, dude, what's happening here? What's happening? You know what I'm saying? You know, you only get maybe 1% of my day, but now you're starting to, intrude in my space, perpetrate in my space, and then shuts down the discipline side just so you can get back. Okay. So what I'm talking about is being able through discipline and sacrifice to operate like this. And in order to do that, your discipline side has to be in control, and that takes effort. That's not an entropy situation. This one takes effort for you to allow your system to be uncomfortable. And in order for that to happen, you have to say to the amygdala, dude, it's okay. It's okay. That's how discipline works. I mean, I'm not there yet, but that's how discipline works. You have to allow your natural system to believe there is an imbalance. And when there's an imbalance, okay, the amygdala is going to say, fight against it, freeze, don't do nothing, don't engage. All right. So when you're disciplined, though, what they do is they find a way to control the amygdala. So instead of when it wants to fight or run or freeze, successful people know how to get the system to cooperate. Now, remember I said to you earlier that we have two sides of us. I keep looking because I don't want to forget that I'm still talking about the services we offer, but then I'm talking about things over here too I want you to see. So, we have the disciplined side and the lethargic side. And so in order for the disciplined side to stay out, because they're joined, you're not two separate people, you're one person, with two sides, lethargic versus disciplined. And so successful people learn how to keep the discipline side forefront. They do. And as far as I know, the only way to do that, the only proper way to do that, wow, can't believe what I just thought about, but the most ethical way to do it is just to train your mind. We'll talk about how to train the mind. I told you one great way, you start off teaching children, all these adults that's trying to learn how to set their mind, and you're already 59. You're never too old, but come on, old habits are harder to break. But what if we start to teach them everything that we hear on these motivational videos, like the Joel Osteens, the Steve Harveys, Denzel Washingtons, the other guys, I don't know all of them. But what if we start to teach children to embrace those principles while they're young so that they have an aptitude to learn and they understand that education and what they're going through, this is their full-time job as children. Again, I know that people like to say play is the work of childhood. And I think that's, I don't even know how to refer to that. I'm all for play. Like I told you, recess is my favorite subject too. It is. But at the same time, if they get one childhood, think about it. Please think about it. They get one childhood, not two, no do-over. One childhood, one opportunity to prepare for where you're going. Because if you're on a conveyor belt, think about it. When you're at the airport and you get on that conveyor belt, right? And it's just kind of doing, you don't have to take one step to get to the other destination, right? So I try to say, kids are like on a conveyor belt. They're growing. Okay, whether or not you do anything, whether or not they get up and take a step, they're going to be age 5, then 7, then 11. Okay, you're going to grow. And if while they're on that conveyor belt and they're going towards the real destination, what's the destination? They're going towards becoming adults. Isn't that what we do? We We grow up and we become adults, and then after we become adults, we kind of stop, you know. But that's where they're headed, and then we start to live our life. So all of our childhood is a preparation to allow us to live as adults. So how would we not think that's the time to prepare children to live a successful life? It blows my mind every time. Okay, so let's say we don't do it during childhood. When do you teach a person to succeed as an adult? After they become an adult? Is that crazy? Because you can't teach an adult nothing. I mean, you know what I mean. Our habits, our ways, and who wants to go back and study? You know why a lot of people shy away from chasing their dream once they graduate from high school? Once they graduate from high school, you see, when you realize what what is going to cost you to achieve your dreams, I can say that because it kind of happened to me initially. So I took the long road to be where I am. Because when I had all the options to take the algebras and the advanced classes in high school, I didn't do it. I was an athlete. And so I ran. I was fast. And nobody bothered me. Like I don't have a situation where I never failed anything. And I don't remember spending a lot of time studying either while I was in, the younger classes, the middle schools, the high schools. But somehow I passed. Now, I'm not saying I didn't do any work. Come on. I was a good kid. So I did my work. I did my homework, but I certainly wasn't one of those kids that was in the top 5%, not that kind of studying. I was not one of those kids that had a solid foundation. I was not. My foundation probably looked more like the one that I'm trying to have kids avoid. And so when I graduated from high school, I knew I wanted to be a pharmacist. And then I looked at the prerequisite to become a pharmacist, and my limbic system, the amygdala, was like, "Oh no, you don't. Oh no, honey. All those prerequisites that I had dodged, they were facing me." So I took the long road. I what did I do first? I think I went into teaching first. Because it's a little easier. You don't need all those science prerequisites. So that's what I did. I went into education. It's challenging still. I'm not trying to downplay. And then after education, I realized I did want to be a pharmacist. So then I went back to college, to pharmacy school, and yeah, but I had to take all these prerequisite classes to backwards, all these backward steps that, you know what I'm saying? I don't regret anything, and all things fall into order anyways. But I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't mean that you're gonna naturally just succeed. That's not what that means. So I went back and I did all those courses. It took me forever, like more than a decade probably. Okay. So, and then I did that. And then after that, like I said, I went on to doctorate school. Well, I should say educational doctor. Okay, it's not the PhD, it's the EDD. So, so we do it with our book. I want to, before I put it down, talk about it again. This is a mindset enrichment program that Dr. Small has developed. And what it does, it introduces the whole concept of mindset to children. We can't just depend on the teachers and the schools to do it. You want your child to wrap their legs around them. Okay, you want your children to wrap their legs and their arms around mindset, a growth mindset concept. I know somebody else was talking about it in the school system. They never keep it, you know. And so you want them to wrap all of their around appendices around these concepts, okay? And you want it to be consistent. That's the secret. Or it's got to be consistent. You can't just do it one year and stop. So our system incorporates, it's called, oh dear. Okay, stronger foundation. I told you why it's called a stronger foundation, because the strong foundation that they have, the foundation they have now, is keeping them at the lowest in every school across your district. And if you look at it, I mean, you might find one. I haven't found one yet where you have the African American children that are leading. They're always at the bottom at all the schools that I've looked at so far, and I keep looking and hoping. All right, so this is what you say is what you are. Get your copy for your child to read. And then when you're done with this, maybe this is the only one we have. We have one curriculum. I mean, we have other curriculum, but this is the one, the middle one, the book that we have for our children. Otherwise, we have digital versions for the younger children that cannot read. So that's when I said that we only have this physical copy. That's what I mean. Okay. And for like older children, which we don't really do a lot of older children, because see, we understand that if you don't reach these children during their window of opportunity, you're going to have trouble. Okay. So we reach out to families to get their children in kindergarten through second grade. If you want to reverse the data, that's when you must begin. Okay, if you're watching and you're like, oh man, my kid's already in third grade. You see, there's a way, but when they get in third grade and they already have all these gaps, okay, not just that, they don't have the aptitude for learning anymore, that little juicy face and the passion they had for school. You see, once they start to realize that they have gaps and they start to develop that low self-concept, because no one wants to feel dumb. No one wants to feel stupid. You're always going to remove yourself from situations that make you feel like you're not smart, like you're not winning. Always. And when you allow a child to pass a certain stage, it's not even a question anymore. They're not even putting out certain amount of effort to reach those areas. Why? Because remember, the amygdala, it encodes emotional memories, and it's always going to remind them when they used to try and how they failed and how it felt. Okay, you don't want to throw your system out of imbalance, so the brain does everything to maintain balance. Everything to maintain balance. All right, great. So now we can move on, I think, to the last on what we do, children. I'll show you that last training we do after the evaluation. The evaluation, again, is going to show you where all the gaps are and the root of the gap. And we have the most amazing way of closing learning gaps, and all the children love it. They all love it. So we have the evaluation and the consultation. So we'll consult with families and parents. And after the evaluation, we'll sit with you and we'll say, this is what's going on with your child. These are the areas where they are weak. And you see, the thing is, let me bring you back to this real quickly. So this is the first one over here. Okay, this is primary. And I still need to go ahead and write in. Let me write it in right now. We still need to go ahead and write. This is supposed to be, wait, this is supposed to be, wait, I want to use a different ink, okay? So wait for me right there. So this is supposed to be 6th grade. I still haven't done it. So 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, 10th grade. Okay, we'll fix all that stuff later. So those are the different grades. But when you start here in primary, we start in primary, and this is showing 1st grade. We could say first in kindergarten. Okay, so over on this side of our chart, we have, let's say from kindergarten, whatever they brought up some gaps. The white areas are your gaps. Okay, the solids are not gaps. Okay, that means they fully developed their their skills, whatever the standard was, whatever the concept was, they developed it well. Okay. And so they brought from kindergarten certain amount of gaps. Now they're in first grade. The gaps do not disappear. Okay. So almost like a broken leg, you got your child on a crutch already. They're only in first grade and they're already crutching. And remember, you don't have the money, so they're going to have to live with this. And they're going to bring this heavy load on their back until they get to the great divide. And come on, you know the rest. So we have the primary grades, first grade. Now they have all these gaps. They bring it up to second grade. Okay. So in second grade, there was a gap here. And then we have there in second grade, it shows that even though there was a gap in first grade, that in second grade, maybe some teacher, something happened and teacher was all able to fill in a part of the gap. All right. So we just continue like that. It's all it's doing is showing you second grade, third grade. It's showing you how gaps are developed and how they build and how they transfer. They never ever close unless a program like a stronger foundation is implemented. All right. Not just that random tutoring. A lot of people like to say, I tutor my child. Child, if you give them one tutoring, this one tutoring just to pass a math test in fractions, okay, but it's not consistent and you don't have a program that's consistently giving them the practice, okay, it's not going to go into long-term storage. So the next time the skill surfaces or resurfaces from the teacher's lesson, you're going to find that your child is right back down to remembering. They don't even remember the definition of the skill. If you don't remember, and the way this works, remember, if you don't have this foundation like a house like we talked about, how in the world can you expect your child to thrive academically? If they don't have the foundation of the house, you can't build any room on a house without a foundation. You can't put in any fancy window. You can't put in that nice fancy kitchen countertop that you like. You can't put on the beautiful bathroom that you like. You can't upgrade anything because you don't even have a foundation. And if it's weak, you're wasting your money because as soon as a strong wind comes, it's going to blow everything down. All right, guys. So here we go. Let me finish up over here. So yeah, the primary, that's why they're afraid, because when you have a child with all these gaps, and parents, you might be saying, well, if they're passing them, that must mean stop. Aren't you getting it yet? Stop it. You can't hold a child back too many times. You can't. Because if you did that, you'd have 23-year-olds sitting in a fifth grade classroom if you only pass kids along for the skills that they actually master. They're not mastering the skills, but you have to move them along so that human growth and development issues won't arise. Because again, if you have a 25-year-old sitting in a fourth grade classroom, they're going to keep stealing the other kids' lunch and their lunch money, right? Not to mention beating them up. It might be the father of some of those kids in the in the fourth grade classroom. Okay. So let's just continue. Okay, let's get back a little bit. Okay. So yeah. So then the amygdala, we were there, but let's finish this. So in the consultation, we're able now to show you as a parent where your child is and what needs to happen to get them back on track. Okay, they're not going to get back on track in a few days or months. Okay, if it took them 4 years to develop the gaps, it's going to take time to close the gaps. So this random tutoring is terrible. It's almost like, remember, there was a commercial when I guess there was a person that had like a dollar that was hanging, and the person is like reaching up trying to get the dollar, and it keeps bringing it up, and he's like, you got to do better than that. You got to do better than that. That was a commercial. So that's what you're doing. You know, if they need something for survival, and you're just stringing it along, and they're trying to reach, that's unethical. That's unethical. Okay. So the consultation, I love that because again, we tell a lot of the parents what needs to be done, and the majority of the time, unfortunately, and so sadly, they walk away and they say, "Oh," because as long as you have to pay for it at all, you see, we tend to be a people, and this is the academic architect that's going to say this, not Dr. Small, but we tend to be a people sometimes that like handouts. If it's not free, it's not for me. Well, I tell you something, I don't like everything free. I think free money, I don't think anyone will walk away from that. But see, if I go into a store and you're telling me that I can buy this one chicken and you're going to give me 3 packs free, I don't want it. You know what I say to myself? Why is that chicken free? What's wrong with it? You see, so that's how I am. So yeah, free money. Who's going to resist free money? But we tend to like everything to be free. Okay. Fixing your child. If your child had a medical condition like we talked about when we started, if they have cancer, who's going to give you that cure and the treatment for free? Who's going to do that? That's not going to happen. You know what you're going to do? You're going to find the money to give them the treatment. Because in your head, this is an ethical situation, but education is not ethical enough. This situation, when they have cancer, it might result in a physical death. But when your child is struggling academic and have that weak foundation, it's going to result still in death, even if it's a mental death. And that's what we're doing to our children. That's what we're doing to our people. And that's why I'm sorry, Harriet, but I'm doing my best. I'm working on them, Harriet. Okay. I know what you went through to help us to be where we are, to help us to be free in the way that we're free, physical freeness, while still enslaved up here. All right. So I'm definitely doing it. I admire Harriet Tubman because, oh my goodness, if I could just be like her, if I could have that discipline that she had, that courage that she had, that determination that she had, that bravery, good Lord, I'd be conquering everything right now, right? I'd be the best version of me. I know I'm on my way. I know I'm en route to it, but still working towards it. So Harriet, tell them what you went through so that our children can reverse this data. You didn't do what you did. You didn't run through those murky waters. And you know she had to work mostly at night. Couldn't see nothing. She running through the murky water, through the bushes, probably get prickles all over herself. If you prick me one time, okay, if I would never even walk through that. I think I'd probably be one of those people that says, Harriet, you're going to have to go on without me, child. That's too dark. I'm not going out there. I don't know how to swim. So anyways, you heard Harriet. She said, you got to listen to Dr. Small, okay? Good. So consultation, and then we have parent information sessions. What that looks a lot like this, but definitely more concise. Doesn't have 50 different episodes. You know, we just get to the point where we explain how to learn and occur, and we explain to the parent why this data is occurring. So it's a beautifully consolidated what can I say? Something similar to this, like a reflection of what's happening now, but obviously much shorter. In fact, 45 minutes, we wrap it up. Okay, so then we have the information session, and then we have professional presentation and speaker opportunities if you want to invite Dr. Small to come and speak. Okay, and in person, I'm a lot, a lot more. Usually, I'm calmer. Okay, more focused, definitely more focused. But right now, we're in the lab. It's unscripted, and I bounce everywhere. But when I come to do presentations, I come with notes, and so it keeps me focusing on point because I know I have a limited time to speak. All right, so let's see how we doing on time, and if we need to move on to the next. Okay, we have about 10 more minutes. So let's continue. So now the amygdala. We want to talk about how the brain impacts students' learning, what's happening while we're down here. Okay, so we have the amygdala. And I already told you that what I find funny is that it actually perceives learning as a threat. It's not a laughing matter, but that's my theory because it sends the children into fight or flight mode, into survival mode, and they block what's being taught or they freeze. They don't go home and develop these skills. And remember, teachers can't barely, teachers can't barely even encourage a child to go home and practice in the way that will develop that child to be successful. Because if they do, they're getting in trouble now. They are. Teachers are getting in trouble, being held liable because you're giving the kids too much work. Okay? Let's just let life happen naturally. And you see, when you think about the practices that someone do when they want you to fail versus what they do when they want you to succeed. See, let's say they were to the sport of tennis, for example, and there was somebody that's really, 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 really good at it, and you were competing with that person, right? Would you encourage that person to keep practicing? I mean, not without the moral stuff. We know morally it's the right thing to do. You know, you're supposed to want them to win. You're not supposed to want them to lose. But we're talking about, let's be practical here. If you want to beat them, are you going to say, listen, you need to practice every single day for 8 hours? Just keep practicing. Practice, 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 practice. Are you going to do that? No, you're going to do that with yourself. You might tell them, you might say, you work really hard and you probably should take a break, because you're already at the top. You're already the best player. So you can relax a little bit. Take a break, sit down, rest your leg. And plus, if you don't want to overwork your arm so that you tear some of your ligaments, you want to make sure that you're ready for the competition day. That's what you'd say to them, right? Bring that back to school and, you know, if you want to think that another culture is attacking you and wanting you to fail, I would think that's what you would apply to it. You would say, oh, you don't want me to train. Oh, you like me being right here. I'm not staying right here. I'm going to train and I'm going to get our data up to top. That's what I would think. And that's why I tell kids, when you have a teacher that says, you've done well enough, that's okay. I get it. I tell them to run. I said, that's not your friend. Anyone that tells you not to work hard, that's not your friend. That person is not an advocate for your success. I said, yes, hard work hurts. It does. Okay? If you're trying to lose your little belly pouch, that last part is difficult to lose. Okay? Because you're really digging into those deep muscles. If you want to get rid of the flabs under the arms, that's a lot of work. Hard work is hard. People want hard work is easy. It's hard. You're going to struggle. You're going to cry. When you have to stay up late at night, sometimes you have to pull an all-nighter because you're trying to align with your best self. It's hard. It's true. So That's what it takes to get you to succeed. You have to come out of your comfort zone. And in your comfort zone, hardly anything is hard. It's not hard. It's easy. It comes naturally. You're on a conveyor belt. You're just moving along. People who succeed in life, everyone's on a conveyor belt, but they sprint and they learn how to control. They learn how to submerge the lethargic version of themselves. Obviously, I can't go into that right now. I just want to wrap up what we're doing right now. So yeah, the amygdala perceives learning as a threat, and that's where you're seeing the responses in our students. That's shutting down, that's fighting back, that's freezing, that's running away, okay, all that stuff. That's what you're seeing. This is the cause. This is Dr. Small's theory of childhood enrichment and alignment, right? You got to have that balance. You got to have the balance. And I said before, if there's going to be an imbalance, mindset have to win. Can you believe that I said that? I'm saying that between education and mindset, the most important one is your mindset. And I remember when I heard somebody doing a graduation speech and they said, education is not the most important thing in your life to succeed. Oh my goodness gracious. If I could have just, tricked them, I probably would have and say, how dare you say that? But I guess the statement wasn't completed. So now I can kind of agree with what they were trying to say. They were saying that you could be the brightest person in the world. You could graduate top of your class. But if you don't have mindsets, if you don't have a success mindset, and if you don't have drive, and if you don't have discipline, and if you don't have perseverance, and if you don't know how to get yourself to be consistent, you ain't going too far. You're going to settle right there with the rest of the 98%. You're going to settle right into place. Imagine someone that's running so fast, way up ahead, like sometimes you're on the road and you have this driver that's like, and they just speed up ahead like, good Lord, there's an emergency. And then only when you get to the light finally with your slow self, they're sitting right there. So that's what happened too with people that's, they may be at the top of their class, but if they don't have drive, they're not going much further than you are. And lastly, when you have mindset, see, if you have that success mindset and you learn how to silence this guy right here, even if you can't read, even if you can't write, even if you can't do arithmetic, you can align with your purpose. Because that's what holds back a lot of really smart people. They're scared. Their fear of failure keeps them with their fancy degrees on their walls, all these fancy degrees in their offices. They may be doctor, they may be a dentist, but they have not fulfilled their purpose because they're scared to step out. So, looks like we're just about at the end of our time, the allotted time. And I'm really excited to have you join me. I'm really excited that we're on this journey and we're going to continue to talk. All right. So we may have, it's going to be a lot of sessions. Like I said, you just watch what you can when you can. And my goal is that educational systems and leaders will reach out to implement my strategies and embrace my education movement. I know there are many ways, but remember, it's about the end goal for me. It's not about using my system. It's about using a system that's going to align children with their purpose. And I don't know of any other personally. I know there are a lot of great education programs. I know that especially people that's able to, they have all the resources. Like rich folk can open some fancy schools, man, where you have a bunch of Alexa apps and Series and just the touch screens and the fancy equipment. But if your kids are still going to end up with all these gaps, because they do because the balance is still off, then if it's still going to not develop the children the way we need them to be developed, you know, then what's the point? I want to finish my last point. Again, if you're willing to save a child's life that's struggling with cancer, if you're willing to save their physical life, you have to ask yourself, why would you save their physical life only to align them with a mental death? That's unethical. Allowing a child to grow up, you know that's what's happening in school because you're told, you get reports, but you still allow them to grow up with these gaps. And you're like, oh, we'll fix it later. That's wrong. That's wrong. So I want you to begin to have a different perception of educating your children. Lastly, I promise, one of the reasons why I'm really big on developing children to align with their purpose is because you see how I use cancer as an example. I believe that a lot of times a cure for cancer has already been possible. But because sometimes these underachievers, sometimes these little lethargic kids who we allow to stay in the low data, sometimes the cure for cancer has been implanted in them as their purpose to be fulfilled. But because they never amounted to the level they needed to be able to fulfill that purpose, and they didn't have the strong enough foundation, when they got up to the future life, they realized, or the great divide, how much they were going to have to do, what the prerequisites involved. Then they walked away. And in walking away, we lost the cure for cancer. They died with the cure. They were born with the cure. They died with the cure. So we have to wait for another to be born with the cure. And if we allow the same thing to keep happening, then we forfeit the cure. All right. So anyways, I'm going to have to run because this is getting very long and I know how our attention spans are. All right. So when we come back, as usual, we're going to pick up where we left off. Until then, I want you to begin to try to be your best version too. And if you're a parent listening, your best version is not leaving your child to chase your dream while they continue to trod the path that's going to lead them to repeat that same pattern where they say, I don't have the money just to give my child's education enrichment. Do we want to succeed? Really want to succeed? You want your child to succeed? These are the principles that we're going to have to deal with. That's going to change the trajectory of us repeating the same economic pattern throughout. We're not going to blame. We're not going to complain. We're going to train. And hopefully I'll see you back in the next episode. All right. Until then, Dr. Small is signing out, going to chase my purpose, going to try to be my best self.